Merci beaucoup, monsieur l'ambassadeur, ça fait plaisir à nous. J'espère. Oui, oui. Merci beaucoup.
You have to give me your new number.
Yeah, no, I will. I definitely will. And I will get my business cards. I just left them.
فين عندك دونك عندك في ستافورد
فريدرسبرغ وهي مخدينا واحد امريكان comme j'ai fait le programme international IVLP et du coup
Explique le IVLP.
le IVLP donc c'est International Visitor Leadership. Donc c'est un programme qui il repère dans le monde entier en fait, il repère les gens, les futurs leaderships.
Maybe if you can find a white lawyer, like the embassy that reach out to, that can
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's.
it's here you're saying.
Good morning, everyone. Hello, can I have your attention, please? We'll be starting in 10 minutes, please. Thank you. A special thanks as well to our ambassador, Mr. AMLEN, who came briefly but could not stay. Thank you for our coordinator who has done a magnificent job gathering everyone today around this table, Ms. Wafa Nabnbi. And thank you, Mr. Abdelhamid Jamali, for coming this week and staying with us, accompanying us, seeing how the community here in the US is, and going through the details of what it is to be a Moroccan American. I would like to thank again everyone who came today, my colleagues, my friends, my community friends and colleagues. Today we are here as a start of a number of series that the Council has planned on holding within the United States. So the idea has been to meet with various Moroccan communities in the United States, starting with Washington, D.C., and from there going to other places, New York, probably Boston, Orlando, and whatnot. As you can see, or as you have heard, there has been a big push for the Moroccan community abroad, and that is transparent from His Majesty King Mohammed VI's speech during the throwing-in ceremony this past summer. 60% of the speech has been about the Moroccan community abroad, our rights, our responsibilities, public policies, political engagement, and various other elements. And we would like to thank His Majesty for this special interest that is not recent, but has been throughout the last few years of big items on his agenda. And we would like to have today the start of a formal conversation on how the Moroccan community abroad, starting with the Moroccan community in the United States, can start being a real partner and a real member within this political sphere that is opening up for us and to be real actors of change, of innovation, real partners with public policy makers, government institutions, and whatnot. I would like to keep it brief. We have a lot of guests with a lot of very interesting topics that they will be sharing with us this morning. And I will move on to our first guest. Unfortunately, as I said, His Excellency Ambassador Bouhlal was not able to stay, so Mr. Rohali, his deputy, will be speaking on his behalf, and for that, I thank you.
I wish all of you a very warm welcome to Washington, and especially to the representatives of the CCME who have come all the way from Morocco, from France, and elsewhere. And to thank the representatives of our Moroccan community here in the Greater Washington area, and who managed to spare time out of their busy schedules to be among us today. And to thank our American friends and partners and all members of our Moroccan community. Ladies and gentlemen, while I commend the choice of the United States to hold this important event, I would like to emphasize that it's an excellent opportunity to address the opportunities that the 2011 Constitution provides for the Moroccans living abroad. It's also an opportunity to look together into the challenges we face and how to address the concerns and the aspirations of our nationals in the US. In fact, the CCME as a space of reflection and research, but also as a forum of dialogue and exchange, is the appropriate framework to do so. The theme of your gathering today is in line with the ambitions of Morocco to have a constitution that constitutes a decisive historic transition in our democratic path. In his address to the nation on July 30, 2011, His Majesty Mohammed VI stressed, and I'm quoting, that no constitution, however flawless it may be, is an end in itself. It's rather a basis upon which a new political pact can be built and capitalized on to uphold the rule of law, human rights, and good governance, and bolster development through efficient and credible institutions. End of quote. So while commending the participatory approach adopted in the dialogue on the opportunities and the challenges for our fellow citizens in the US among the different and diverse stakeholders, I'm convinced that you will contribute to shed more light on the way to proceed forward towards a better understanding of the needs and aspirations of every child. Thank you, and I wish you all success.
Thank you, Mr. Rohali. Thank you, and
Organiser cette réunion à Washington. D'abord, je voudrais remercier, ça fait une échange entre le Maroc et les États-Unis. Je voulais remercier pour leur accueil chaleureux et pour toutes les informations qu'ils ont bien voulu nous faire. Nous sommes ici dans le cadre du CCME, le Conseil de la communauté marocaine à l'étranger, qui est une institution consultative auprès de Sa Majesté le Roi. Nous ne sommes pas le gouvernement, nous ne sommes pas une instance exécutive, donc nous sommes là pour réfléchir. Et on voudrait réfléchir ensemble, parce que le CCME, il n'appartient pas à ses membres, il appartient à toute la communauté marocaine à l'étranger. Et tout le monde est bienvenu, bien sûr, pour contribuer à cette réflexion. Et nous sommes plus particulièrement dans le cadre du groupe de travail sur les politiques publiques que j'ai l'honneur de présider et dont Nadia est membre. Et nous avons commencé un travail donc, de réflexion avec une nouvelle démarche, une nouvelle méthode de travail pour essayer d'aboutir à des idées et à des propositions concrètes pour améliorer la politique migratoire marocaine, mais aussi la politique migratoire des pays d'accueil. Et donc c'est pour ça donc, le choix de ce séminaire et de ce format. C'est un format scientifique, ce n'est pas un format de masse, c'est un format de réflexion donc, qui permet à un ensemble d'acteurs, notamment de la région de Washington, parce que ça concerne un peu la région de Washington pour l'instant. Mais nous comptons organiser d'autres rencontres dans d'autres États pour élargir justement cette réflexion. Donc j'ai l'honneur d'organiser cette réunion chez vous aujourd'hui et j'ai l'honneur de vous recevoir ici. Et donc nous allons avoir une réunion bien chargée de réflexion sur plusieurs thèmes, parce qu'il faut qu'on reste très ciblé, il faut qu'on cible ce qu'on veut. Parce que dès qu'on parle de migration, à chaque fois c'est transversal, on va dans tous les sens. Donc aujourd'hui, nous ne sommes pas dans le détail, mais nous sommes dans la politique. Ça veut dire qu'il faut parler politique en relation avec la Constitution de 2011. Il faut qu'on dise voilà comment la migration, voilà comment la communauté marocaine à l'étranger, notamment aux États-Unis, veut voir sa participation, sa contribution au développement, aux efforts de développement que le Maroc a mis en route. Nous savons tous que notre pays, le Maroc, avec les orientations de Sa Majesté le Roi que lui assiste, a beaucoup insisté sur la participation des Marocains résidant à l'étranger. Cette insistance est concrétisée, elle est inscrite dans le marbre aujourd'hui, dans la Constitution de 2011, avec 4 articles qui concernent la Constitution, qui concernent la communauté marocaine à l'étranger, que nous devons opérationnaliser. Donc aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas encore opérationnalisé, mais on doit faire des propositions au gouvernement et aussi à Sa Majesté pour accélérer l'opérationnalisation de ces articles qui concernent la communauté marocaine à l'étranger. C'est très important. Nous savons que le Maroc, sous le règne de Sa Majesté le Roi, a lancé plusieurs chantiers qui ont donné des résultats, plusieurs chantiers structurants. D'abord au niveau économique, le Maroc a lancé plusieurs chantiers structurants qui visent le long terme, parce que en politique, pour les observateurs internationaux dans différents pays, on lance des projets qui sont réalisables dans une échéance, dans un mandat, dans le courant d'un mandat. Alors qu'au Maroc, nous avons des chantiers qui visent 10, 12, 20, 30 ans, 40 ans.
Nous sommes très fiers de constater que notre pays avance. Et avance, et le développement ne se fait pas seulement sur l'axe, je dirais, Casablanca-Kémitra-Tanger. Il se fait partout. On a constaté que les indicateurs de développement humain ont atteint des taux maximum par rapport au Maroc, même plus forts que le Sud. Le taux de scolarisation, le taux d'accès à l'éducation, à la santé, les équipements en route, la sociale. Ce qu'on a vu à travers l'histoire des pays qui ont choisi l'un des 3 modèles, ils n'ont pas abouti. Ceux qui ont fait que le choix du développement politique n'ont pas abouti. Ceux qui ont fait le choix du développement économique seul n'ont pas abouti. Notre pays a fait le choix de mener en concert le développement sur toutes ces dimensions-là, économique, politique et sociale. C'est très important. Le niveau politique, on le voit, donc il y a pas mal de réformes, il y a pas mal de nouveaux cadres législatifs qui sortent.
Il y a d'autres modèles aussi. Le Maroc a fait le choix d'accompagner les personnes qui n'ont pas, qui sont en dessous du seuil de la pauvreté, les accompagner pour une meilleure inclusion dans la société. Parce qu'au Maroc, on considère que la pauvreté n'est pas seulement matérielle, elle est aussi surtout sociale. Un pauvre, c'est quelqu'un qui perd ses liens sociaux. Et ça, c'est très important. Et donc, il y a un accompagnement pour cette inclusion dans la société, et cet accompagnement pour créer des activités génératrices de revenus. Il y a un accompagnement donc, pour examiner les causes de l'avance encore de faiblesse au niveau de l'accès aux services de base, donc pour pouvoir leur apporter les solutions adéquates. Et on voit aussi que les MRE, les Marocains résidant à l'étranger ou la communauté marocaine résidant à l'étranger, jouent un rôle revendicatif ou dormante, donc de participer à cet élan de participation au développement du Maroc, mais aussi de bénéficier de réseaux. Parce qu'on sait que chacun a ses compétences, mais chacun aussi a un réseau de compétences américaines, réseau d'Américains, etc. Donc ils peuvent être drainés vers la coopération, pour renforcer la coopération entre le Maroc et les États-Unis. Ça, c'est très important. Et donc, ça veut dire à partir de maintenant, il faudrait qu'on inscrive notre travail dans la durée. Les milliardaires qui vont y contribuer doivent fournir beaucoup d'efforts, parce que ce développement n'est pas facile. Notre pays a besoin de nous.
Thank you, Abdelhamid. I'd like to take a few minutes. I just realized most people don't know each other in this room. So I think it would be useful
to speak with you in English.
You're doing great.
10 minutes? Okay. Madam the President, you are challenging me. You are asking me to do my presentation. The subject is 16 years of the political life, economic life, and socio-economic life in the case of Morocco. 16 years. I'm doing that to summarize that in 10 minutes. You are asking me an impossible mission Okay, I will try to do my best. I will try to do my best, and I will let the other opportunity to have a question and answer during the day. Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you for the staff and all people who make this event happen. The year of 2015 marks the 60th anniversary of the King Mohammed V reign. Since acceding to the throne in 1999, King Mohammed VI has consolidated, accelerated, and strengthened social, economic, constitutional, and democratic reform. The main objective was, thank you very much. The main objective was, and continued to be, high expectation. That's why His Majesty made several gestures to signal the beginning of a new era. In his first speech, he defended women's rights, arguing for their full participation in the public life. He spoke against poverty, injustice, and corruption. He called for a new concept of authority based on accountability, human rights, and individual freedom. A service based on the respect of decentralized institutions and local liberties. Let's remove to the Arab and Islamic world. It is geographical position at the top of the continent of Africa, of world within framework of compromise, respect, and security and peace. There is some most important achievements over the past 6 years. The first administrative and political reform is Majesty adoption of the principle of the good governance, positive and good relation between the authority and the citizen, and Morocco took all the measures in order to strengthen, to promote, and to consolidate the activities as a advisory council on human rights. Its founding law was amended in 2001 to be in conformation with Paris principles, and again in 2011 giving the institution more power, more autonomy, and more prerogative to protect and to promote human rights in Morocco, and also to promote principle of value of democracy. The establishment of National Human Rights Council strengthened the commitment of Morocco to protect citizen rights and freedom. It reflects Morocco's respect of the international commitments in the protection and promotion of human rights in accordance. Morocco is party. The National Commission for Truth and Justice, and this very important thing, in 2004, Moroccan Truth and Reconciliation Commission was the first first. And during the appointment of the Commission on January 7, 2004, His Majesty the King delivered a grand speech, giving the Commission a historical role to play and a significant responsibility. After many public hearings and testimonies, 23,676 Moroccans received compensation totaling $183 million. Not only that, but the King accepted also all the recommendations. The Parliament and the government are working hand in hand in order to pass the necessary legislation and to implement them. We have now the Mudawana, the 2004 reform of family code, the Mudawana. This reform was really and continues to be one of the most prerogative law on women and family rights in Arab world. Major component of the reform included the family code, raising the minimum age of the marriage from men and women from 15 to this reform set the stage for rapid advancement of women in Moroccan business and politics as well. The code seems to be the appropriate tools to reinforce the women's rights and the elimination of gender discrimination in private and development. In some speech, the King assumed that state's responsibility to undertake, it's very important to say that, to undertake social modernization through integrated publicity. The three focal points in India identified in the King's speech were to reduce the social deficit, both urban and rural, through of the Constitution since its independence. In 1956, Morocco has had 6 constitution promulgated respectively in 1962, 1970, 1972, 1982, 1986, and 211. In addition to these 6 different constitutional texts, Morocco revised 3 of its constitutional texts, namely those of 1972, 1982, and 1986. However, the new constitution of 2011 is considered as a suitable tool in initiating the Moroccan alternative toward democracy. I will jump. Also constitutionalized the participative and citizen democracy, the territorial democracy, advanced regionalization, the fundamental principle of, in terms of the good governance, ethical standard of the political life, accountability, transparency, the rule of law. It goes without saying that the new constitution was designed to establish a constitutional monarchy with separation of power, to delegate and to enhance responsibility to local and regional elected authorities, to reinforce clear support for the multicultural and multi-religion character of Moroccan society, in addition to setting the parameter for power sharing between the monarchy, between the head of the government and the parliament. I will finish in 2 minutes. The new Moroccan political reform in the eyes of foreign political leaders. Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, said in many ways the United States took to Morocco to of this change by holding free and fair election, empowering the elected parliament, taking action of Moroccan institutions and society. France fully supports these by the country, as well as means to strengthen the cooperation between the European and Morocco. And according to the High Representative Catherine Ashton, this reform constitutes a significant response to advanced status. In order to make you happy, Madam President, thank you very much, and thank you audience for giving me this time. Thank you very much. And I will be very happy to have your question after.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Take care of me in terms of organizing my presentation today. And of course, I'd like to thank Hassan and Aisha for their splendid coordination. And I have to thank my colleague, Mr. Rahali. So that's who I work for, and I know most of you know that name. And I'm happy to see many of my friends from the Moroccan community here. We've done a lot in the last 20 years, 13 years that we've had our organization, the Moroccan American Center. But I also want to point out to you, and Dr. Yunus, this may be interesting to you as well, Helen Semhan. Helen?
Yes.
Helen Semhan, years in the United States, and the Arab American Institute, Jim Zugby's organization, which we co-founded, is the partner with the Census Bureau on analyzing data on Arab Americans. And Helen is the person who was responsible for many years for doing that. Tajin, it's about working in the political life in the United States. So think about the big picture. This is a country of immigrants. It is a country of immigrants. And so all of us have to go through a process by which we become part of the American political life. So ethnicity, being part of an ethnic group, is very much part of the American process. And most of the mobilization of getting involved in civic affairs and political affairs is driven by coalition building. We can't do anything by ourselves. We build coalitions with other groups. And this is the way you get anything done in this country. And so that's very helpful, because if you have to work in coalitions to achieve your goals, it breaks down the barriers of seeing yourself as we versus they. Because when you define interests in common, it's easier to work together. So I may have a totally different concept from you on the issue of safety in schools, but I can share your interests in terms of immigration. This is a very complicated country to run for office. We have 50 states, and every state, they set up different rules for how they elect people to all the offices, whether it's the local office or the state office or the national office. So getting part of that process is very difficult to understand all of the differences that exist in terms of getting involved with the system. And then, as Moroccans, you know this better than anyone, there are stereotypes out there about us as Moroccans, as Muslims, as Arabs. And all of these stereotypes affect our ability to work with the community. And because of that, our lack of knowledge, our lack of awareness of the system, and our reaching out to other parts of the community, it sets you up to try to isolate yourself, to see yourself as a separate group from other people. And we're naturally curious. We meet someone from Nepal. I've never met anyone from Nepal before, so I'm anxious to get to know them, or someone from Colombia or Sri Lanka or other places. So what we have to remember is that in the United States, in terms of politics, all politics is local. And that is, you begin at the local level to make coalitions, to find people with similar interests, and then to be active in your community. Who are the Moroccan Americans? And this is where I think that Dr. Yunus and Helen have a lot in common. According to the census, and of course Ambassador Bilal disputes this, according to the census, there are over 100,000 Moroccans in the United States. Ambassador Bilal says, they tell me 200,000, but I believe there's 350,000, he said. We were in Atlanta 2 weeks ago, and everywhere we went, there were Moroccan people working in the hotel. There were Moroccan people in the restaurants. There were Moroccan people driving the Ubers. So he said, there have to be 350,000 Moroccans. And I said, does that mean 150,000 are illegal? No. There are more skilled Moroccans in this country and educated than their counterparts in Europe. Over 30% of Moroccans in this country are college or graduate school degrees. It's a young population. 30% of the Moroccans in this country are under 18. 49% are born in the US, and they have a broad variety of skills. So hardworking, you're part of the community, you get involved in the schools, you show that you're interested in what's going on, and this shows people that Moroccans are serious people, and they want to be part of making America a great country, so that's important. We have a PAC, New Dominion PAC, which a PAC is organizations that support
and the need to proceed to supervision. Now, one system of supervision is the Convention Against Torture and Other Forms of Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment and Punishment. That convention establishes some obligations. One, the obligation to incorporate the definition against torture in the domestic legal system. Two, the non-derogability of the prohibition against torture, even under emergency situation. Relevant to this topic also the prohibition of non-refoulement, meaning you cannot send a person to a country where she or he runs a substantial risk of being tortured if that person is returned. The obligation to try or extradite individuals who have allegedly committed torture, obligations to provide redress and reparation, the prohibition to use confessions extracted under torture in judicial proceedings. Now, what are the techniques of supervision? Very briefly, to get into a topic, the techniques of supervision are the following. First, country reports. Countries, when they ratify this convention and every 4 years thereafter, need to present a report to a committee against torture showing how are they complying with these obligations. Did they incorporate the definition against torture? Are they, what are they training the police? Are they providing remedies for violations of the convention? What happens with discrimination, because it can be a form of torture or inhuman treatment, and so forth and so on. So one technique is this presentation to a committee showing the status of compliance, and the end report of the committee is called concluding observations that list positive measures adopted, as well as establish what things need to happen to achieve full compliance. That's one technique. Second technique of supervision, cases. the presentation of petitions. Third technique of supervision, interstate complaints. They don't happen. States usually do not go and complain against each other. Number 4, confidential visits when we have indications of systematic torture. And let me add the following, general comments by a committee. The committee issues general comments interpreting the provisions of the convention. So this technique reports individual petitions, confidential visits with the acceptance of the state, and we have interstate complaints. They don't exist. I mean, they exist in the paper. Morocco has accepted that, for example, one of the kind, but they don't take place. And number 4, general comments, which are like opinions of what interpreting the provisions of the convention. Now, I wanted to mention, going into a matter of discrimination and gender, general comments that relate directly to discrimination. I think it's interesting if we're working in this field to take a look in particular to general comments 2 and 3 of the Committee Against Torture, for physical or mental, and these acts can be done, and that constitutes torture, to extract confessions, to punish people, or for any reason based on discrimination of any kind. So the committee has interpreted the following, that when we see domestic violence or child attacks that are happening, and happens every day in their society, but if the country, when those acts happen, did not investigate and punish, providing and sanction those who are responsible, the country nation is based mostly on discrimination, in the sense that there is a stronger person that teaches the other one something. That's absolutely nonsense, of course, but this is in the root of a discriminatory behavior. Now, if it doesn't raise to the level of torture, the actions inflicted and not repressed and cured by the action of the state, it might be then inhuman treatment, which is another provision of the Convention, Article 16, and not constitute torture, but still engage the international responsibility. So, the protection of minority or marginalized individuals in general. They are marginalized individuals or minorities are especially at risk of torture, and there is an obligation to prevent torture and interest. A country needs to have a legal system that are exposed at anyone, but in this case we're talking about populations that are marginalized because of their religion, ethnicity, or gender. Not preventing this type of action constitute a violation of the Convention Against Torture, either because this might be torture if it's followed by action of some severity, or because it constitutes inhuman treatment. Now, does the country have disaggregated data on gender, for example, or marginalized groups that shows behavior towards them? Does a country have a system of data collection that shows, for example, what type of actions and complaints have been presented, and what was another important general comment is general comment number 3 on redress and rehabilitation, because the rehabilitation, for example, rape, and the whole apparatus of the state designed to provide rehabilitation is composed in a certain way that does not. So we are not talking here about abstract norms that are very distant from practice. Let me say this, there was a very important tradition in Latin America during the colonies. The orders of the King of Spain, the people in the colonies, would put them on abstract norms that cannot be implemented. Or so we have stated that the key thing is what happens in practice, sponsor, torture, and discrimination. But in numerous countries, it's not done as a state policy. It happens because of lack of resources, lack of training, lack of imagination. And then we ask yeah, the laws are good. How many people have been got the redress? Because when you have a situation perfect and we don't have any case, well, there's no country. Well, there is, to finish. Now, let me say also, finalizing this, that the jurisprudence of the committee has been developed also on the matter of refoulement, and with a strong component of gender. For example, when you send back women to a country where they could be submitted to female genital mutilation, you cannot imagine how long did it take to establish that that constituted torture, or the situation involving an accompanied treatment, or massive expulsion of foreigners, or the placing children in places of detention because they are undocumented aliens. So cases on the non-refoulement, and again you can see in the website of the committee, particularly relate to countries like Sweden, Switzerland, Austria. So the committee has developed this rich jurisprudence in those terms. I thank you for your attention, and for and again it's an honor to be here and to present in a very summary way the obligations and mechanisms of the Convention in Project. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Now move on again to Mr. Mohamed Jamari, who will cover the institutional.
Lors de la présidence, nous avons assuré des présidences successives de tout le système des Nations Unies sur les droits de l'homme, et nous l'avons assuré pendant une période qui était très difficile, où il a fallu renforcer le système des organes de traité des Nations Unies qui menaçaient de disparition. Et donc je pense que nous avons joué un rôle, avec toute modestie, un rôle très important dans le renforcement de ce système. Donc merci Claudio. En fait, le sujet sur lequel je vais intervenir, c'est la migration en tant que vecteur de développement, et aussi par rapport en relation avec la régionalisation. Donc je vais essayer d'être bref pour gagner un peu de temps parce que nous avons pris un peu de retard. Par rapport à la migration, donc on ne va pas recommencer tout le discours sur le rôle que jouent les migrants dans le développement. Donc on sait que c'est un rôle très important, on sait que la migration joue un rôle dans le pays d'accueil, dans le pays d'origine, dans le pays de transit. Et par rapport aux droits, on dit qu'un migrant qui jouit de ses droits est un migrant plus bénéfique pour le pays d'accueil et pour le pays d'origine. Parce qu'un migrant qui jouit de ses droits, il s'émancipe plus, il donne plus, il travaille plus, et il participe plus à la vie de la société, que ce soit au niveau économique ou social. Donc c'est très important. Par rapport au pays d'origine, on sait que les migrants jouent un rôle multiple. D'abord par rapport au transfert, on parle souvent de transfert. Les transferts jouent un rôle, comme je le disais ce matin, ces transferts sont utilisés pour le développement, parce qu'un migrant participe à la scolarisation de quelqu'un de sa famille, aux soins de quelqu'un de sa famille, donc il participe au développement du pays. Mais un autre aspect qu'on cite moins, sans parler bien sûr de transfert des biens, etc., donc d'investissement, etc., il y a le transfert des valeurs. Je pense qu'en ce qui concerne le Maroc, la majorité des migrants marocains sont des pays démocratiques. Donc les migrants vivent la démocratie, vivent les échanges, vivent les états de droit, vivent la cité. Donc dans leur pays d'origine, ils transmettent ces valeurs-là. C'est valable pour les Marocains, mais c'est valable aussi pour beaucoup d'autres migrants. Quand ils vont retourner dans leur pays, ils veulent que ça fonctionne comme dans les pays dans lesquels ils vivent quand ils sont démocratiques. Donc la difficulté se pose, c'est quand les migrants sont des pays qui ne sont pas démocratiques et où il n'y a pas de respect des droits. Donc, et nous, en tant que comité des Nations Unies sur les droits des migrants, au niveau de Genève, quand on discute avec les pays sur le rapport périodique, on a la difficulté de mesurer l'application de la Convention dans un pays par rapport aux droits qui sont octroyés aux migrants. Alors que même les citoyens de ce pays n'ont pas les droits de base. Donc ça nous pose des fois des difficultés pour formuler des recommandations pour les différents États. Je pense au niveau des droits des migrants aujourd'hui, on a des outils de protection. Donc, il y a d'abord au niveau national, chaque pays a sa loi ou ses lois sur la protection des droits des migrants. au niveau régional dans certaines régions. Donc, si on prend par exemple l'Afrique de l'Ouest, l'Afrique de l'Est, l'Union européenne, l'Amérique latine, etc. Donc il y a à chaque fois des groupements régionaux, il y a des conventions régionales qui permettent donc de protéger les droits des migrants. Et il y a bien sûr tout ce qui est suprême, c'est la loi internationale, notamment au niveau des Nations Unies, que ce soit aux Nations Unies elles-mêmes par rapport à la convention que j'ai l'honneur de représenter, la convention de 1990, ou d'autres conventions aussi, celle du BIT qui porte de façon plus spécifique sur les droits des travailleurs migrants. Donc, il y a un cadre, donc je pense, je dirais au niveau institutionnel, nous avons les cadres nécessaires pour assurer une meilleure protection des travailleurs migrants. Seulement, ce qu'on constate, c'est que toutes les conventions qui concernent les travailleurs migrants ne sont pas ratifiées de façon très large. Et ça pose problème. Donc ça pose problème. Ce qu'on peut dire aujourd'hui, c'est que en relation avec le développement, jusqu'à 2015, il y avait ce qu'on appelle les OMD, Objectifs du millénaire pour le développement. Et je dirais que les travailleurs migrants étaient exclus, étaient absents de ces objectifs-là. Alors qu'aujourd'hui, avec un débat qui a duré à peu près 2 ou 3 ans, en préparation des nouveaux objectifs qu'on appelle objectifs pour le développement durable, nous avons réussi à intégrer la question migratoire et les migrants comme acteurs et comme bénéficiaires aussi. Donc ça veut dire qu'ils sont acteurs parce qu'ils jouent un rôle dans la réalisation des objectifs du millénaire pour leur pays. Ils sont concernés aussi parce que souvent ils sont vulnérables, ils vivent des situations de précarité, notamment quand il s'agit de migrants en situation régulière, quand il s'agit d'enfants non accompagnés, quand il s'agit de femmes. Et donc, ils doivent être bénéficiaires de ces objectifs pour le développement durable. Donc, ce qui a été acquis cette année lors de la dernière Assemblée générale des Nations Unies. On parle de droits, mais le principal problème, la question pourrait être posée aussi à Grossman, c'est la question de l'applicabilité du droit. Parce que souvent on a le droit, mais il y a l'applicabilité. Des fois, la loi n'est pas appliquée, et des fois, des mécanismes ne permettent pas de l'appliquer. Par exemple, je prends l'exemple d'une femme qui a rejoint son mari dans un pays d'accueil où la loi exige que le couple reste marié reste conjoint pendant au moins 3 ans pour que la femme puisse bénéficier d'une carte de séjour permanente. Si la femme subit des violences, elle ne pourra pas aller porter plainte à la police. Parce que si elle porte plainte, ça veut dire qu'il y aura séparation avec son mari. S'il y a séparation avec son mari, elle n'aura plus le droit à la carte de séjour. Et donc, ça veut dire c'est la police qui est censée nous protéger, appliquer la loi, devient une menace pour une catégorie de migrants. Parce qu'on ne peut pas porter plainte parce qu'on risque de tomber dans une situation de précarité, de vulnérabilité encore plus grave. Donc ça c'est... Et même aujourd'hui, les dernières recherches qui ont été faites sur la situation d'immigration, notamment en situation régulière, la situation d'irrégularité se fait dans le pays d'accueil. Ça veut dire souvent, dans la majorité des cas, le migrant rentre de façon régulière, contrairement à tout ce qu'on voit à la télévision, aux médias, etc. La personne rentre de façon régulière, soit avec un visa de touriste, soit avec un contrat saisonnier, soit avec même un contrat à durée indéterminée. De ce vecteur de développement que jouent leurs ressortissants qui se trouvent dans d'autres pays. C'est très important. Donc, et ça, c'est bien sûr, il faut que les institutions soient conscientes, notamment par exemple le centre régional d'investissement. Puis toute l'électrification, ça a été fait par l'argent des migrants, soit en contribution individuelle, soit en contribution collective, soit dans le cadre de ce qu'on appelle migration et développement, etc. Je vais juste saluer M. Grossman, parce qu'il doit partir et je vous prie.
But I have been a guest in Morocco, a beneficiary of Morocco's famous hospitality, for which I'm very grateful, and which explains in part my continuing interest in Morocco. It would be presumptuous to suggest in a group of Moroccan Americans that I aspire to be an American Moroccan, but nevertheless, I like to view myself certainly as a friend of Morocco. And I'm very glad to see both some familiar and some new faces here. We often think, or at least Americans often think of our country as a land of freedom, but we are also a country with a long history to overcome. And in particular, the country began with a legacy of slavery. We have experienced segregation since slavery. We have, even after the end of formal segregation in the United States, we have experienced history and to create a more inclusive political and social society. Among the laws that constitute American anti-discrimination laws, we have the foundation of anti-discrimination laws in the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. And provisions of the 14th Amendment that are particularly important and that arose out of the abolition of slavery in the United States are equal protection of the laws for everyone, and this is a core principle of American jurisprudence. Protections for disabilities, for older workers, for workers who are interested in unionizing or who are attempting to just even to improve the conditions of their workplace. Of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, this legally protects a variety of protected classes, including protection against discrimination based on race, color, national origin, sex, and religion. And of particular interest, I think, in the immigration context is discrimination, which perhaps might apply to Moroccans from time to time in this country. Discrimination to vindicate their rights. But they're also assisted by a variety of federal agencies. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is established to combat specifically discrimination in employment, hiring, firing, promotions, discipline on the job. The National Labor Relations Board, whose primary purpose is to regulate the relation of workplace in the workplace, is protected from retaliation. And this is called protection for concerted protected activity. So even if you are, say, discussing the conditions of your workplace in social media, such as on Facebook, if you're discussing it on your coffee breaks, if you're discussing with your fellow workers the conditions of your employment, you may not be retaliated against. And also there's the Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division, which enforces, among other things, the Fair Labor Standards Act, and that is the law that says people, among other things, that people must be paid a minimum wage for their work, and it's priorities for addressing discrimination in the workplace. And I would like to call your attention particularly to Provision 2, protecting immigrant, migrant, and other vulnerable workers in the workplace. People who are particularly subject to exploitation, to disadvantages in hiring, to discrimination in their wages. And the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has made it a particular priority to combat this. Another particularly noteworthy development in the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission has been protection concerning ethnicity and religion, and taking a clue from Professor Abinader in terms of thinking globally. One of the major Supreme Court cases in the last term was Equal Employment Opportunity Commission versus Abercrombie and Fitch. And this was a case, it was originally brought by a Palestinian-American woman named Samantha Love, who complained that she was discriminated against because when she interviewed for the job, she was wearing a headscarf. And even though she didn't say that she was a Muslim, although she was, the Abercrombie and Fitch first interviewed her, found she was fully qualified for the job, but when the person who interviewed her went up to her supervisor and said she wears a headscarf, the supervisor responded, well, she must be a Muslim. it's a religious obligation. We're not going to hire anyone who has a headscarf because we have a policy of a uniform dress code, and headscarves don't fit into our image of what our American employees should be. And this went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said this is an obvious case, even though it had been quite controversial in the lower courts, and ruled that the company could not discriminate against someone based on their sincerely held religious belief, and had to accommodate them in terms of things like wearing a headscarf that really are not at all related to the performance of their job. And I'm sure everyone here is aware that there are undocumented workers in the country and undocumented workers of Moroccan origin. It's important to understand that the Fair Labor Standards Act protects. There has been a Supreme Court decision that said in the context of people who are fired and then ask for work for the wages they missed done, but nevertheless that is the policy, the current policy of the Department of Labor. It is also worth noting that
intervene with various companies to facilitate, to subsidize landing and takeoff slots and so forth, to facilitate for the community members to go back and forth. That's very important because it helps in many ways, not only in terms of visitors going to Morocco, but also for various members here and their children to stay in touch with the home country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mustafa. So, yeah,
let's say migrants who came 20 or 30 years ago?
yes, I would certainly language challenges of getting equalization of their educational credentials so that people are often working at levels below what they would be working in their home countries based on their education and experience. And I think that particularly in this country, and particularly since the events of September 11th, that there is widespread and long-standing prejudice against Arabs in this country. Going back even before 9/11, going back to my sense is that many people, when they're discriminated against, are reluctant to come forward.
I wanted to mention that Bill had mentioned a few instances in which somebody may want to consult with an attorney, and I want to thank you for inviting me and explain that the Pro Bono Center may be able to help in some of these instances. So please, if you are thinking of starting, or if you're currently running a small business, if you're starting a nonprofit, if you work with folks, whether they're documented immigrants or not, who are facing local legal troubles, do think of the Pro Bono Center. We run several court-based resource centers. So for folks who are facing issues with their landlord, for folks who have family law things, you can go to one of our court-based resource centers and consult with an attorney for free. I personally run a brief advice clinic for immigration matters. You do not have to be documented. Everything is confidential. Bill's volunteered. It's a great time if you want to volunteer. It's also really helpful if you want to consult with an attorney for free before you say hire someone, or if it's a quick question. I want to travel. How long, can I go? Can I get back into the States? There are lots of times that you may want to just ask someone a quick question, and our immigration clinic is a good way to do that. We also have a general advice and referral clinic, so if there are employment law questions, anything else like that, please do think of us, refer anybody that you know to us. Language is never a problem. We can always accommodate you, and you will see that there are flyers outside. So I'm sorry to take so much time, but thank you. And do ask me anything that you want to. Bill has my card. I will either get you help or find someone to help you.
Yes. To be perfectly